Hey, Greek students. Hopefully, you're doing well. I know learning a language at distance is difficult, and I apologize that we have to do this, but I don't want to let an entire month go by without at least moving at least one chapter ahead in our Greek book. So I'm going to talk about chapter 6, which is found on page 23 of your Greek book. Go ahead and go grab that book. You'll want to be able to reference it. I will reference it multiple times in this video. So you'll want that available and in front of you. Fortunately for us, chapter 6 is pretty easy, I think. The first section is really stuff you already know. The second section is adjectives, which are not that difficult in Greek, I don't think. I think they're actually easier in Greek than they are in English. So hopefully you find this fairly interesting and fairly easy. You should have already received work or workbook pages from me, or from the school rather, through scanning. If you did not receive those, shoot me an email. I will get those to you and help you out with that. So go ahead and open to page 6, chapter 6, page 23. And let's look at what we have in chapter 6. We really only have two things. We have irregular first and second declension nouns, super easy. And we have adjectives, which are a little bit more difficult, but still not that difficult. So you might, at first glance, see irregular first and second declension nouns and think to yourself, oh no, this sounds complicated. Oh no, there's 3 more charts. Fortunately for you, you don't even need to memorize these charts. Why? Because you already have, with the exception of the second one. But you've really already memorized all this stuff. And what I want you to look at is this. So if we look at the first chart on page 23, we've got the word charas, which means way or road. And charas is a second declension noun, but it is a feminine. Now what does this mean? This means that the endings of the word are going to be our typical second declension endings. In fact, if you want to see those, turn back to page 13, chapter 3, second declension nouns. All the endings are the same. Nominative singular, we've got as as an ending. Genitive singular, we've got u as an ending. Dative singular, we've got o as an ending, right? The endings are the same. What's different is the article, right? If we look at the article, it's a feminine article. And in fact, the article and the ending don't match. This is the first time we've really had that going on. The ending and the article don't match at all. I mean, I know we have that a little bit with the eta and the alpha endings, but even then, they still match. But this doesn't match. Okay, so really, this is super easy. You already know all the endings. You already know all the articles. This is just preparing you if you happen to see a word that has a non-matching article, you know what's going on. It's a regular noun. If it's got a feminine article but a second declension ending, it's a feminine second declension noun. Easy. Nothing new here. Moving on, we've got masculine first declension nouns. Masculine first declension nouns. All right, these words have the same endings as the chart on page 20 in chapter 5. With two exceptions, the nominative singular is different and the genitive singular is different, but the rest are the same. The dative singular of chart 2 on page 23, identical to chart 1, page 20. Okay, so you can open up your book, look at those, identical. Accusative singular, identical. Chart 2 on page 23 as chart 1 on page 20, identical. So you already know this, with the exception of the nominative and the genitive. That's the only thing you have to memorize in this entire thing. Note, though, that again, you've got masculine articles, not feminine articles. And then if we flip the page to 24, we've got one more chart, but this is just the alpha endings rather than the eta endings. So chart 2, page 23, eta endings. Chart 1, page 24, alpha endings. Right? We already memorized these in chapter 5. They're nothing new. You might want to write these charts down, but you don't need to. Just remember that if a article and a noun don't line up, it's an irregular. It's an irregular. Okay? So keep that in mind. Okay, so that was the easy part. Let's move on to adjectives. Now, adjectives are, they look scary. Right? That second chart on page 24 looks big. You're probably thinking, Mr. Mortar, I can't memorize another chart. You don't need to memorize that chart. In fact, what that chart is doing is it's showing you how that adjective, the adjective agathos, which means good, would be formed if it was used with any of those words. So if agathos is modifying a singular nominative, it will look like agathos. If it's modifying a plural nominative, it will be agathoi. If it's modifying a feminine singular nominative, it will be agathae. So on and so forth. So you don't need to memorize that chart. That's just showing you the endings that this word can have. And as you can see, the word can take every ending that you know so far. It can take all the endings. So what does this mean? This means that when you see an adjective, it will always share the ending with the word that it modifies. So, for example, if we turn over to page 26, the chart, the top left box, ho agathos anthropos, look at the endings. They're identical because you can tell that agathos and anthropos go together because their endings match. Right? So that's actually nice. That actually makes figuring out where adjectives go easier in Greek than it is in English. I don't know if you know this or not, but in English, determining where an adjective is, and by the way, an adjective is a word that modifies a noun. That's what an adjective is. We figure out adjectives almost exclusively by word order, meaning you have to stick the words in the right order. Let me give you an example of this. If I am talking about playing kickball with the big red ball, that sounds good. But listen to this. We're going to play kickball with the red big ball. That sounded weird, didn't it? Right? It just sounds weird. Say it to yourself, red big ball. Well, that does not sound right. Big red ball. Sounds great. Red big ball. No good. Right? So English actually has a very sophisticated requirements on adjectives. They have to go in specific spaces. They have to go in specific orders. They must be before the word. I can't say the red ball big. That doesn't work. That's not accurate. So adjectives are very tightly constrained in English. They have to go in certain places. They have to go in certain orders. And we learn that over time. A good English grammar will have the rules in there, but you probably don't know what the rules are. You don't need to know what the rules are. You just know them. But it's actually pretty complicated. And one of the hallmark tells of a new English speaker is that they mess up their adjectives. Their adjectives don't come in the right places because, again, it's hard in English. It's actually really difficult. You're a pro at it because you've spoken English for 15 to 18 years, right? So you've spoken English so long that you're good at it, but it's actually really hard. It's easier in Greek than it is in English, right? The endings always match, and usually the adjective is very close to the word it modifies. Not always, but it's usually close. So that's nice. Now we have three different types of adjectival uses, or ways adjectives can be used. The first is attributive adjective, or attributive position adjective. And that's just the normal adjective. It modifies the noun. So if we look at the second row of our chart on page 26, we've got the good man. Good modifies man. What kind of man is he? He's a good man. The good man, as opposed to the bad man, or the great man. He's the good man. The good man. Or a good man if it doesn't have an article, as you can see from the second part of that chart. Easy. That's just normal adjectival use. You're probably already pro about that. Next, we have a predicate adjective. And you might have studied this in English. I would imagine you juniors and seniors have. I'm not sure about you guys in 9th and 10th grade. Maybe you have. Not sure when this is taught in English. But a predicate is simply a way of restating something. Predicate in Latin literally means to say before. So something that's been said before actually is what it says. So predicate is usually just a redefining of a word. So you see there in the second row in the middle column, we have the man is good. The man is good. And in Greek, the book gives you rules, but I'm just telling you right now that there's really no good rule to know when something's a predicate and when it's an attributive or a normal adjective. You have to kind of try both out. You know, the book has given you general rules, but it doesn't always follow those. And I can prove that to you by showing you row 3, right? Row 3, if we look at the bottom of column 1, right, it's identical to column 2. So sometimes it's attributive, sometimes it's predicate. We'll work through the situations where you might want to think it's a predicate, and we'll work through the situations where you might want to think it's an attributive. But even the predicate's pretty easy. The man is good. Okay, he it's a linking verb there. He exists as a good one, right? That's really what it means. It's redefining man, right? The man is a good one. We could put one in there, and that would be accurate. The man is a good one. Okay, so if you're confused on predicates, don't worry about it. We'll talk about it. We'll learn. Easy. Finally, we have a substantive. Now, a substantive is something that many languages do, but English does not. In English, you must always have a noun for a adjective to modify. In Greek and in Latin, you don't. You can just stick an adjective out there, and if there is no noun to modify, you assume one for the adjective. So the example they give you there is hoagathos. That literally just means the good. And the reason it's called a substantive is because we now have to provide something. They've provided the word man. That's a very old school English way to do it. I would personally just say a good one. One in the sense of a good individual. Because we can't assume that just from the information we have here, right? Just from column 3, we don't know that that's a man. In context, you maybe could figure that out. If the Bible passage has been talking about John the Baptist for the last few verses, and then it just says hoagathos, yeah, you can guess that it's talking about John the Baptist again. But we don't know that for sure. So I would probably just say a good one. And substantive simply means that it's a provided subject. Provided subject. Substantive. Substantive. Okay? If you don't understand that, don't worry about it. We'll talk more about it in person. Let's go through the vocab real quick, and then I'll let you go. We've got agathos, which means good. That's the word we've been using as our example. Agathos. No great way to memorize that. The next word is hagios, which means holy. Hagios. And you might be familiar with the Hagia Sophia, which is the now mosque, but formerly church in Istanbul. And it literally means the holy wisdom, the church of holy wisdom. So Hagia or Hagias means holy, and I think we can kind of hear that. Hagias, holy, kind of related. We've got ago, which means I lead. Verb, ago, I lead. We've got apostello, which means I send. So that would, by extension, mean the next word, apostellos, means the sent one. But of course, one of the funny things about both Greek and Latin is sometimes, as English was developing, we just brought words from Greek and we just kind of know the meaning, right? So an apostolos, which is apostle, we have an English word apostle. But if you didn't know what an apostle or if you had never been to church before and I told you that, oh, that person's an apostle, you would go, okay, what's an apostle, right? It's kind of like defining apostolos as an apostle is kind of like saying, well, the word meat means meat. Oh, awesome. That doesn't help me, right? I don't know what you're talking about. So apostle literally means a sent one. Someone who is sent. So the apostles of Jesus Christ are the men sent by Jesus Christ, or the people sent by Jesus Christ. That's what being an apostle means. Balo, I cast. Balo, I cast or throw. Kalos, good, beautiful. Kalos. Kalos. Again, no great way to memorize this, just have to memorize. Mathetes, disciple. Mathetes, disciple. Mikros. This one's easy. Small, little, micro. So if you've ever heard of something being described as micro, it just means little, small, mikros, directly from Greek. Neanias, young man, adolescent-ish, not quite a full man. That's kind of what that means, neanias. Chodas, which means road or way, road or way. So this could be referring to a big paved road, or it could be referring to a little path, although there are other words that can be used for path. Chodas. Pistos, faith. Pistos, faith. Poneras, evil. Poneras, evil. Pro, which is a preposition, means before, with genitive. And finally, prophetes, prophet. Easy. Brought directly into English from Greek. Prophetes. Prophetes. Prophet. All right. Well, I know this has been perhaps confusing since you're really kind of learning this on your own, and I apologize about that. I would encourage you to read through all of Chapter 6, maybe after listening to this video. I think it's got helpful information. What will be most helpful, though, is to work on those assignments that I sent home, especially the workbook page. This stuff seems awful complicated until you actually sit down and do it. And then oftentimes, I personally find it's not anywhere near as difficult as I thought it was originally. Hopefully this is helpful to you. Let me know if you've got any questions or if I can help you in any way. And other than that, have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.